Jeffrey Epstein is a name that has become synonymous with scandal, abuse, and the dark intersections of wealth and power. His story is not merely one of a single criminal, but a stark illustration of how influence, money, and secrecy can shield horrific behavior for decades. Epstein lived a double life. In public, he was a wealthy financier, rubbing shoulders with presidents, billionaires, and royalty. In private, he orchestrated a sprawling network of sexual exploitation involving underage girls. The more one investigates Epstein's life, the clearer it becomes that his story is as much about society's failures as it is about one man's crimes. Jeffrey Edward Epstein was born in 1953 in Brooklyn, New York. He did not hail from wealth or privilege, and his early life was largely unremarkable. Epstein attended college, but dropped out before completing a degree. Later, he worked briefly as a high school math and physics teacher. These early years offered no clues to the world he would eventually dominate, a world of private islands, multi-million-dollar properties, and access to some of the most powerful people on Earth. The mystery of how Epstein acquired such wealth without a transparent record of legitimate business ventures remains one of the most enduring questions about his life. By the 1980s, Epstein had entered the finance world, claiming to work as a money manager for extremely wealthy clients. His methods were shrouded in secrecy, and very few details about his investment strategies were ever made public. Yet, despite the opacity of his operations, he amassed extraordinary wealth. Some reports suggest Epstein's charm and social skills allowed him to cultivate relationships with the ultra-wealthy, who entrusted him with their fortunes. Others speculate there may have been undisclosed or even illicit avenues that contributed to his fortune. Whatever the truth, Epstein's rise in society seemed sudden and, for many, inexplicable. As Epstein's financial empire grew, so did his access to the world's elite. He purchased a sprawling mansion in Manhattan, an estate in Palm Beach, Florida, and a private Caribbean island known as Little St. James. The island would later become infamous, often referred to as Epstein Island in media reports, as allegations mounted that it was used as a site for systematic sexual abuse. Epstein also owned private jets, including the infamous Lolita Express, used to transport guests and, as later reported, victims. These symbols of wealth and power allowed Epstein to craft an image of untouchability, making it increasingly difficult for anyone to challenge him. Behind the luxurious facade, Epstein operated a carefully orchestrated system of abuse. He primarily targeted underage girls, often from vulnerable or disadvantaged backgrounds. Initially, the approach was subtle. Girls were offered money for seemingly harmless favors, such as massages. However, these appointments often escalated into sexual abuse. Epstein's methods relied not only on coercion, but also psychological manipulation. He used charm, intimidation, and authority to control victims, creating fear and dependency that kept them silent. Some victims were even pressured to recruit other girls, expanding his network and increasing the scale of abuse. The psychological impact on victims was severe. Survivors described long-term trauma, including anxiety, depression, shame, and fear. Many felt isolated, believing they were alone in their experiences. In reality, Epstein's network affected dozens, perhaps hundreds, over the years. The structure of his operation made it difficult for law enforcement to see the full picture, allowing Epstein to continue his activities largely uninterrupted for decades. Adding to the gravity of the situation were Epstein's connections to powerful individuals. He was reported to have close ties to politicians, business magnates, celebrities, and even royalty. These connections provided not only social validation, but also protection. Whether or not his associates were aware of his crimes, Epstein's elite network created an environment where he could act with impunity. The perception of invincibility sent a chilling message to victims. This man is untouchable. The first major legal challenge came in 2005 when authorities in Florida began investigating Epstein following allegations of sexual misconduct involving underage girls. By 2006, multiple complaints were filed detailing abuse and exploitation. The public expected the legal system to act decisively. However, in 2008, Epstein was offered an extremely lenient plea deal. He pleaded guilty to lesser state charges and served just 13 months in jail, much of which allowed him to leave for work during the day. Federal charges were dropped, and victims were largely excluded from the negotiation process. This outcome was widely criticized as a profound failure of justice, highlighting the influence of wealth and power in the legal system. Even after serving his minimal sentence, Epstein returned to his lavish lifestyle. He continued to attend high-profile events and maintain his elite social circle. But the story did not end there. Investigative journalists, determined survivors, and law enforcement officials kept uncovering evidence of abuse. Patterns emerged, witness testimonies were collected, and the full scale of Epstein's operations slowly became impossible to ignore. In July 2019, Epstein was arrested again, this time on federal sex trafficking charges in New York. This arrest was different. The case promised to be comprehensive, potentially implicating associates and revealing how Epstein's network had operated for decades. Media coverage intensified, and survivors expressed cautious hope that justice would finally prevail. For the first time, the prospect of a historic trial loomed, threatening to expose not only Epstein, but potentially high-profile figures who may have been connected to him. However, before the trial could commence, Epstein was found dead in his jail cell on August 10, 2019. The official ruling was suicide by hanging, but the circumstances surrounding his death fueled intense suspicion. Surveillance cameras were reportedly not functioning, guards failed to perform routine checks, and Epstein had previously been under suicide watch. For many, the timing and conditions of his death raised alarming questions. Had someone silenced him? What secrets died with him? Was justice truly served, or was a larger truth lost forever? Epstein's death did not end the investigations. Authorities continued to examine his financial dealings, property holdings, and network of associates. Meanwhile, his longtime partner and confidant, Ghislaine Maxwell, was arrested and later convicted for her role in recruiting and abusing minors. While this represented a measure of accountability, it also underscored how much of the broader system of abuse remained unaddressed. Many victims continue to grapple with the emotional and psychological consequences, while questions about powerful individuals' involvement linger unanswered. The legacy of Jeffrey Epstein is complex and unsettling. His story is a chilling reminder that unchecked power and wealth can corrupt justice systems and allow horrific crimes to continue unpunished. It demonstrates how predators can manipulate social hierarchies, exploit trust, and prey on the vulnerable, often with impunity. Perhaps most importantly, it serves as a call to society to listen to victims, scrutinize privilege, and ensure that justice is not determined by status or influence. Epstein's life and death remain a symbol of systemic failure. His crimes, connections, and the unanswered questions surrounding them will be studied, debated, and remembered for years to come. More than just the tale of a criminal, Epstein's story forces a deeper examination of societal priorities, the intersection of power and accountability, and the courage required to confront uncomfortable truths. It is a story that, even after decades, continues to shock, fascinate, and horrify.